the major media is now running cover for the cartels. And
they are. They started yesterday at the New York Times. I
Yes.
just want to read this little tweet, because this is the first thing that caught my attention. Was the brutal killing of 9 members of an American family in northern Mexico on Monday highlights the long history of religious fundamentalist settlers in the region. And then they have their religion reporter go into detail on that. That's where the propaganda machine started. And now here we are on the next day, and they're alleging that they are connected to a sex cult.
Yes.
Like, the smear campaign has kicked itself into high gear. And I actually had to dig through this article from The Sun and really pay attention to see where they're getting this idea. You remember Allison Mack?
Yes.
This controversy
Yeah, sure.
of Allison Mack?
Sure. That was the Nexium thing, right?
Yeah, she was connected to the whole Nexium thing and the Rainier guy that was running that.
Yep.
And the connection they're trying to draw to this family is that he tried to seek out women from their community. I don't see anything supporting the idea he actually succeeded, but that essentially amounts to, well, he contacted them trying to get Mormon women.
Yes. So according to the New York Post,
by extension, they're now members of a sex cult now, because this shithead contacted them.
So according to the New York Post, I got the article right here. The Outpost Mormon community in Mexico is where underlings of NXIVM leader Keith Rainier recruited young women to work as nannies in an upstate New York compound led by the accused cult, suggesting, at least in part, the jobs would get the girls away from their home region's drug violence, according to a man hired by Rainier to produce a documentary about the group. 3 moms and 6 kids killed in Monday's violence in the northern town of Sonora are believed to have been the victims of a drug cartel which may have mistaken the group's caravan of 3 SUVs for rivals, Mexican authorities said Tuesday.
I don't buy that shit at all.
The filmmaker...
I'm sure that they were...
the filmmaker working with Rainier at the time, Mark Vincente, told the online magazine Slate that the documentary ultimately became a recruiting video for an NXIVM, which purported to be a self-help group, which morphs into what the feds called sexually blah, blah, blah. So, the film included an interview with Julian LeBaron, who identified himself as a cousin of one of the moms killed Monday, who is the leader of the Mexico Mormon community. LeBaron's brother was kidnapped by a local drug cartel in 2009, and the family defiantly refused to pay ransom. Cartel, that's, like, to me, I think a little bit maybe more likely what some of this might be related to. The cartel eventually released the abducted man. So now, remarkably low on information article. That is literally the end of the article. And they put a picture here of Keith Rainier next to one of the dead women. And it's like all they have, and it gets worse, but it's amazing that, like, this is what they're saying. So all they have on this is, like, somebody from this thing went to this Mormon community and tried to recruit nannies. Now, I'm sure that NXIVM was going to a lot of places where there were vulnerable white women trying to fucking recruit them. Okay? The fact that they targeted this community does not mean that they were successful. Also does not mean that the community is some recruiting ground for a sex cult. That's the extent. And they don't. And the funny thing is, they do the typical media thing. Fantastic headline with very little detail. It doesn't actually reach any conclusion. He doesn't say whether they were successful or not, which, if they had information that young girls did go from this community to join NXIVM, that surely would have been included. But instead it was no. They reached out to them. And of course, this this thing, and also there's implications in the article that essentially the people in this Mormon community, this Mormon settler community in northern Mexico, felt that they were subject to cartel violence. They were nervous about it. They were worried about it. And then we have the story of an attempted kidnapping. And now we have this idea. These women were all killed and their children were killed. So 3 women and 6 children. And then, there was one of the mothers that died. She and 3 of her children died, and she left behind 6 children. So now what we have here is all these people are killed, and the media, because this looks really bad, and it looks like this is going to possibly, because one, they're white people, they're very good-looking, attractive, healthy-looking white people. They look like model families, as all Mormons always do. It's a very bad look for Mexico. It's a very bad look for relations at the border. It's going to increase calls for security at the border. Because of the cartel problem, it's going to increase calls for a wall. It's going to make people much less receptive to Mexican immigration. It's very bad politically for the entire Jewish establishment that wants effectively an open border. And so what do? They have to smear these people. And the interesting implication of the smear is that going across that border and settling your people in a place where they don't belong effectively makes you a valid subject of violence.
Yep. Yeah.
If that's the case,
you can't expect to be safe when you go settle in somebody else's nation.
You're crossing
if
the
you're
border.
white.
Yeah, but that's
really only if it's
it's really only if you're white, because the idea then that it would be in any way justified for Americans to engage in violence against invading Mexicans, settling in invading Mexicans, that is absolutely horrifying. That is terrible. That is awful. And the funny thing is that they are engaging in effectively the reverse of exactly what all of these fucking La Raza type groups engage in. But they're not trying to take over the Mexico racially. They're just trying to spread their religion, and they did it by creating a little community of Mormons down there. Again, it's not something I would suggest, but it doesn't mean these people should be killed. And the U.S. government, they are U.S. citizens. Does the U.S. government have a responsibility to protect them or no? Does the U.S. government have a responsibility?
The U.S. government won't protect them if they were here.
It wouldn't protect them if they were here, no. If they were killed here, there would be no action.
No. He was trying to shoot a sea lion.
Yeah.
It was an accident.
He just touched the gun and it went off.
Yeah, the gun went off.
Because that's how things work.
The worst thing to me about this whole fucking situation, though, is you have a top-down media propaganda industry that is clearly fucking controlled by the establishment. Yet somehow they have managed to get people, because I was reading comments on this story, they've got them saying stuff like, oh, well, there's two sides to this incident. They were able to plant that seed into their brains, and these fucking imbeciles actually accepted it. They bought it. They just unquestioningly accepted this propaganda.
Yeah.